morning from Richard Miller, Australia, Newcastle, north of Sydney. An interesting place in itself, and I'm going to find out. And its roots are industrial, because steel and coal. And how does a city like this get transformed? So that's what we're here to find out this weekend. And there's a lot of spiritual, a lot of healing, a lot of new thought, a lot of creativity. And a whole bunch of it is all tied up with the Bodhi Fest this weekend, so they're not coming out here. But anyhow, let them be busy and let them get their act together for the weekend. So, but guess what? We got one, and her name is Monika. So hi, Monika, and
hi, Richard.
Thanks for making a little time for us.
Thanks for asking me to be here today.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier about, being a helper. We're a helper for life.
Mm.
First of all, it would be neat to be a helper for our own life and not a hinderer, but we master both of those things. We know how to block ourselves, and then that way it gives us a problem to solve and how to unblock ourselves.
I think a lot of people put obstacles in the way of their well-being. And then if we have enough obstacles, which we generally refer to as negative energies, then we can get ourselves out of balance to the extent that we get some symptoms, either physically or emotionally or mentally, that we're out of balance. So my idea of what's normally called healing is to just work on gaining our optimum balance.
Yet, can we get back into balance? Because in other words, when we're with another person, we can reflect them, and we can... Well, reflecting is so easy. If someone loves us, we love them back, right?
Not necessarily.
If someone hates us, we hate them back, though, right?
Not necessarily either.
Yeah.
Richard, I see a lot of people who are in a relationship where the love seems to be one-sided, but where there's a lot of victim mentality or codependency. And so that doesn't always follow true, that love is mutual or hate is mutual.
Well, okay, victim and codependency is mutual in that case, right?
It is.
I'm just not saying forever or always. I'm just saying often.
Often, sure.
Right.
Yeah, but I think there's a general principle that permeates everything that exists, and that is that everything is an energy, a frequency of energy, and that energy doesn't exist in isolation, but it's resonating with other energies. So I think the concept of healing is that when our natural balance is out of sync in some way, that if we can introduce something that will re-establish us on an energy balance, then we function in our natural way of being again.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking of illustrating that by saying that we reflect each other so easily. And so then if we are with an unbalanced person, we reflect unbalance, and we might be the main unbalance, and they're reflecting us. And then when we get with a so-called healer or somebody that's helping us, and they may be more balanced, or we go to a teacher or a guru or a wise person or something like that, and then we start to reflect a little bit of their balance, But then I was thinking, like, when they go away, we're still living the same lifestyle. So then we're going to create the same imbalances, will we not?
Not necessarily, Richard, because I think, what you were saying is that we have very little choice of how we resonate with other people. And I think that's the whole trick to what I try to talk to with people, that we don't have to be dependent on other people or in fact on circumstances for my well-being. My well-being is my responsibility, and I don't have to make that contingent that I have contact with balanced people or with happy circumstances.
I guess I'm just trying to illustrate the root or the origin, and what happens when we, in other words, if something can come to our awareness and we can see something operating, then it's pretty easy to make a choice and to
it is.
in the face of obstacles, even find freedom.
Yes.
But let's say we're a fetus.
Yes.
And our mother has a certain vibration and a certain tension.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our ground state. I mean, we don't know anything underneath that.
Yeah. And you know what, Richard, the more I get into the concept of energy, the more I realize that the time we spend in our mother's womb is hugely important in an energy way, because I think a little baby is super sensitive to its mother's energy pattern. And I've come across a lot of people who suffer from anxiety, who suffer from depression, and when we actually start to talk, they've either been through a difficult birth, or their mum has had some difficulty in pregnancy, or even things that we think are not necessarily related, but say if a mum has had a miscarriage and then falls pregnant, what are the vibrations that this little baby gets right at the beginning of its life journey? It gets, I'm your worried mum. I hope that you're going to be okay in there, baby. I hope that you're going to make it. Is it 3 months yet? So I think that can
So there's anxiety there, right?
I think that can hugely impact on our energy pattern that we bring into this life journey.
So right now we're kind of relating energies with events in our birth, a tough birth, or
I think,
a worried mom, or something like that.
I think events are an energy pattern.
Yeah.
If we go according to what's taught by quantum physics, and that is that nothing exists in the universe except as a pattern of energy, then events are a pattern of energy.
Of course, the main vibration of our mother, maybe she picked it up in my grandmother's womb.
Exactly.
Right? And then her and her grandmother, and so on and so on. So in
Yes.
other words, like the womb really is a society that we're born into. We're born into a culture. It has a certain overlaying vibration. And we can't really get out of that thing to step back from it and look at it and say, oh, that's that contracted vibration. We're just in it. And from day one, from day minus 100, from day minus whatever 9 months is, the day we were conceived. So then I'm just saying, like, the condition is that, I guess you just call it, if you're not aware of something or you can't notice it, we call it subconscious, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's below your consciousness.
Yeah.
And so then, I don't know, it just seems to me that until you can see another way, you can't really see the way you're at. I mean, you have to step back. It's even like Archimedes or who said, give me a place to stand and I can move the world with his levers and pulleys and stuff, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But we don't have the place to stand to see who we are.
I think it's very important, though. We don't necessarily need to fully understand who we are, Richard. I think what's even more important is to have a vision of who I want to be, and then to implement steps to lead me to who or how I want to be. So if I want to be well, physically or mentally, and if that is my intent, then in order to actually achieve that, I have to implement some measures that will get me to my goal. I don't necessarily have to be able to analyze where I'm at the moment. And I think the whole healing process is a process of transformation, which takes me from one situation or one energy pattern that I have at the moment to a pattern that is more favorable for my well-being. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily, it's contingent to understanding fully where I'm at, because I don't know, I don't think we are, with our human conscious mind, able to always fully understand something. Mm-hmm. But as long as I have a vision as long as I know that I don't like it where I am now, I would rather be somewhere else. And if I'd rather be somewhere else or someone else, now what do I then need to do in order to get me there?
I guess we have some kind of ability to move around in a given context. The context that we're in, we can move around in it a little bit. We see the space in that context.
I think that's the natural way of being, because I think the universe is a self-adjusting being. And I think in order to constantly be in balance, the only way that you can actually achieve that is by having constant change. If you have a look at my little mini universe that I call my body, in order to maintain my homeostasis, I have something like 1,000 different adjustments made just in my physical body every second. And it's this constant change, this constant little bit more acid into here because I've just had a cup of coffee, a little bit more calcium out of my bones. So there's a constant flux which is designed to keep me in my middle way, in my balance.
Now you were saying, if I got you right, that we could have a vision, right? And that,
yes.
We could have a vision for
That's my
positive
intent.
change, right?
That's my intent. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I'm saying that vision is, and you could say it's limited, or you could even say it's very limited, and it's limited by the context we're born into.
Oh yeah, but we can always go beyond that, Richard, because we can choose not to be bound by conventional assumptions of what is possible or what I should be doing. Lots of people lead their entire life by thinking, what should I be doing and what do people expect me to do and what is possible for me?
In a way, we are definitely bound by conventional wisdom because
Very
you can
much.
say, okay,
Yes.
like I want to be healthy.
Yes.
So then we'll define health as, okay, I want to live to be 95 or 98 and I want to have an easy death. Right, and that would be like my vision, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I would never have the vision that I want to live to be 1,000 or something like that because that's not in my context.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. So you know what?
So then we're horribly limited, Yeah. Or like I want to be eternal. I am eternal,
yes.
maybe.
Well, we are eternal because what's the definition of eternity, Richard? Eternity means there is no beginning and no end, and the whole universe is eternal, and I'm part of the whole universe. So I am eternal.
Can you feel that?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can you lead other people to feel it?
Sometimes. Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times we can have some good ideas, but then how to make that into a felt sense or actually make that experiential, people, I talk to a lot of people, and so in a way I hear a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So one time somebody asked me, well, what's your expertise? I said, I'm really good at parroting. And I can spot a parrot from 100 miles,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So then parroting is just saying these glossy statements that, and that sound like, everything is perfect. And God is the creator of all that perfection, but somehow it really doesn't, it's not manifesting here. I'm sick. And then, actually I'm kind of ornery.
I don't think anybody would contend that everything is hunky-dory and always perfect. The thing is, we have a look at existence and shit happens.
Yeah, we do say that about God, though, don't we? Everything is hunky-dory and it's always perfect. God is always perfect.
That's our assumption.
Or is that just like...
No, I think that's our assumption. If we go on the assumption that God is the sum total of everything that exists plus an awesome extra dimension, but there's a lot of things in existence that are out of their balance. So they're part of existence, they're part of God as well. I think the main thing is that there is a constant striving to what I call counterbalancing. And when you were saying before that, we don't have an expectation to live to 1,000, I thought of the word optimum some time ago. So I like to use the word optimum as often as I can. My limited understanding of things might be, I might say to myself, okay, if I get to be 90 years old, that's pretty good. And then I would add, or to my optimum wellness, to my optimum ability. And that sort of, to me, gives spirit permission to take me beyond that if it's possible. I think a lot of our goals and a lot of our intent can be very limited by our self-limiting belief systems. That makes sense to you? Are you thinking?
See, another kind of a goal could be just to say, what do I accept and what do I reject? What am I at peace with and what am I in turmoil with?
Yes.
Right? And so then, a lot of shit happens. You said it, right?
Mm-hmm. If I find that I'm in turmoil with something, either with a person or a situation, then obviously I'm being impacted on by what I call a negative energy. So then I need to take steps. What can I do here to put myself into a more balanced way of being? So, and that oftentimes requires nothing more, Richard, than maybe having a look at a situation from a different point of view, because it's my thoughts that actually create my sense of what happens with this situation. So if I can change my point of view about a person or about a situation, then very often I get myself into an energy pattern that doesn't take me out of my balance as seriously as I might have started off with.
Yeah, I really like what you said. I think you said it's our thoughts that create.
Yes.
Not our experience, but not our what happens, but our experience of what happens.
Yes.
Our sense of what happens, yes. You said, right? Mm-hmm. It's our thoughts that create our sense of what happens.
Yes, because the thing is, when I explain it to people, I talk about the example of driving along and there's a horrific car accident on the other side of the road. And I'm so shocked about witnessing this that my hands start to shake, my heart starts to pound, and my emotions are that I'm absolutely horrified. Now, the accident doesn't become part of who I am. What I'm experiencing is how I'm responding to this situation. So it's, it doesn't matter what kind of situation, what I'm confronted with, I don't experience this situation as such. My bit of the whole thing is my response to this. And stress is a very good example, because we all know that a situation that stresses one person to the max, the next person barely notices. If there's a big slithery snake crawling along the floor here, as long as I know that it's perfectly harmless, I'll bend down and I'll pick it up and I'll drive it around my neck and I say, hello, little snake, you're cute, or whatever it is. And another person, there'll be a little lizard this big and they'll be up on the chair, shouting hysterically. So it's not the event in itself, Richard. It is how I choose to respond to that. So I'm not bound by the event. See, I can't change an event. That's there. I can't change a person necessarily, but I always have the option, if I choose to do so, to change how I'm going to be responding to this. That's what I own, and that's what I can work on.
So then when you say negative energy that it is impinging upon you is not really from the event, it's from your interpretation of the event. Is that what you're saying?
Very often, yes. There are certain events like the death of a loved one that tend to have a fairly common response in people who are in that situation. But there are also a lot of other things that happen, let's just call them events, that depend on my mental interpretation of how I'm going to be responding to that. And that mental response is always my first reaction. We're wired for survival. So the first thing that we do constantly, second by second apparently, but the first thing that we do is, here's an event. My thoughts say, okay, I can see this has happened. What does this mean to me? And in order for us to make that interpretation, I then need to draw upon my past experiences. So that's how people get themselves into a conditioned groove of how we respond to events. So I never ever respond just, Monika is here, the event is happening here, and I'm just responding in this very moment. I respond with my previous knowledge that helps me to interpret. So that is actually an energy pattern up in my head, which triggers the release of chemicals in my body, which I experience as an emotion. And again, remember, stress is a good example of this. And then, according to what I experience as an emotion, that then releases further chemicals which I experience in my body. So we always have something happens, thought, emotion, physical response. So, and most of the things that we take note of are my physical responses. You know, the pounding of the heart, or the feeling of anger, and the clenching of the fists, and the wanting to strangle somebody. But I can change, if I don't like what is happening here, let me see whether I can change my interpretation of what is happening. Very often it works. And then we're empowered. You know, we can't do anything about what has happened. I get people who come to see me and they say, Monika, oh, I've got this boss, or I've got this partner, or this has happened to me as a child, and I can't change it. So then we often feel as if I'm stuck. I have no power to change the vibration of this event. But I do have the power of how I choose to respond to that.
So even in the death of a loved one,
yes,
we know that person's going to die, right?
Yes.
We know we're going to die.
Yes.
So, but then we have a remorse. So maybe that remorse is that I didn't express my love the way
Yes.
I had that love. I didn't express
Yes.
it. I just allowed my time to be used up
Yes.
frivolously in control dramas and
Yes.
stuff like that. And but if we had loved that person with all our love, moment by moment, then we'd say, oh, it's your time. Maybe we wouldn't have remorse. I don't know.
Okay. So what's
or it would
remorse?
be less.
Yes. Well, what's remorse? Remorse is the response to the loved person that you choose to have. But then the important thing is, if you don't want to be stuck with this feeling of remorse for the rest of your life, because it's a negative energy that will get you out of your balance, then you can say to yourself, well, look, I register that I have a feeling of remorse. Now, I can't change the fact that I didn't tell this person enough that I really love them. But I cannot undo that. So let me see whether I can counterbalance that and make sure that from now on I will show people that I love them. I will let them know often. I will let them know not only in what I say, but also in what I do.
And even that one, you could just tell that one I love him. You know, even though they're gone, right? I could
Yes.
just do it.
Yes.
And try it on for size, right?
And we can send loving thoughts to that person, because in the whole scheme of the universe, that person the energy of that person hasn't disappeared into a puff of smoke.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, but we could give it a shot, you know, and anyhow, maybe it'll settle us.
It will. I think my concept of counterbalancing, Richard, is that when something is out of sync, I need to actually do something to what I call counterbalancing. See, if I'm out of balance like this, I can try and analyze and understand how I got myself out of balance. But I can understand until the cows come home, and it still doesn't actually do this. You know, understanding in itself is very often not enough to create my optimum state of balance. I need to do something here, which is what my healing energy does. Say when you've cut your finger, you know, your healing energy, which is the only thing that heals the cut in my finger, doesn't stand there and analyze and tap me on the shoulder and say, look, Monika, this is your friendly healing energy, and I've just noticed you've cut your finger. Now, before I know how to do something about this, I need to really understand how you got yourself into this situation. You know, let's analyze this. Let's go over it and over it and over it. Did you cut your finger on a piece of glass in the garden, or did you cut your finger on a knife in the kitchen? And was it the big knife or the little knife? And how much did it hurt? And how much did it bleed? And did you cry? Because none of that is relevant. My healing intelligence says, oops, she's cut her finger. Okay, now what do I need to do to reorganize this, to do the healing process? And it also knows what to do about the cut in my finger. It knows that this is a different process from healing a broken bone. And it knows that that's a different process from healing a broken heart. You know, so it's, and my healing intelligence goes from the situation that is at the moment. I don't think it Well, that's my personal opinion anyway. This is Monika thinking about how things happen. So I think it is not interested in analyzing and going over how this got itself out of balance. It simply rolls up its sleeves and says, what do I need to do?
Send oxygen, stop bleeding.
Yes. So the thing is, it actually talks to the little cells in the muscle structure of my tiny little blood vessels and says, okay, you guys, now look, she's bleeding here from the cut of the finger, and what I need you to do is only the little cells near the cut, not not all of the cells in Monika's body, but you need to squeeze yourself together tight, like this, squeeze really, really tight, and that'll constrict the blood vessels, and that's how we stop the flow of blood. And then it talks to some other little cells and says, okay, little blood cells, what I need you to do is clump yourself together and sit yourself neatly over this cut to make what we call a scab. And then it talks to my skin cells and says, you need to reproduce like crazy and grow over here, but it's only to the skin cells at the side of the cut, not a general calling all Monika's skin cells, you need to reproduce like crazy, because otherwise I'd have dangly bits all over the place. So it's a very precise, it knows what to do, it has a sequence of what needs to be done first and what comes next. And our job, I think, in the whole healing process, so the cut in the finger is a good example of that. Our job in the whole process is not to stuff up the works, not to pick on the scabs.
Right.
Yeah.
Once in a while, okay, we talked about like negative interpretive energy.
Yes.
And you could get stuck in that, right?
Yes.
And then sometimes another story or an insight will kind of say, oh, you know, because like, let's say you got some big disease, cancer, okay?
Yes.
And you think, oh, God is unjust. God, why you do this to me? You know, and you're just in I'm not going to do anything anymore. I'm not going to cooperate with the world. This injustice, I can't. And somebody tells you, hey, smoking makes cancer, and you've been smoking. And then you go, oh, God is just. And then you just kind of like say, well, what can I do about it now? And then you move, and then at least you take that negative interpretive energy, that anxiety off of the useless injustice idea.
Yep.
And then, I mean, and that's maybe a very silly, example, but I mean, insights happen because stories, basically our anxiety is in a story, right? Because you said a thought comes and then an emotion comes, and then, so the thought says this isn't right, and I don't understand it, so I'm confused, and I'm not going to know what to do because I don't have a clear path, as if, like in a way denying your own healing energy, Yet another way to do it is just kind of to beef up your healing energy or your immune system, or eat certain vitamins and nutrients and so on. And another way is to pray to God, and just kind of get into a flow. And I mean, there's lots of different ways, right?
And can you see that all of this is what I call counterbalancing before? I actually decide that this is the situation that I'm in, so what can I do for myself that will help me restore myself to my optimum balance?
Yeah, I like to say balancing instead of counterbalancing, because counterbalancing tends to mean that the pressure is still on, and somehow I'm going to pull it the other way. But that pressure that's on, we said, was interpretive negative energy. So just stop it, stop that interpretation, and then that negative energy is not there anymore, and you are balanced, but not you're not. But
what
counterbalanced.
The idea of counterbalancing is what I call this. Okay, so the thing is, I say to people, instead of spending your thought and your effort and your focus and trying to analyze how you got yourself into a situation, and say you used the idea of cancer before. So instead of trying to figure out how am I going to get rid of this cancer, and it takes a whole lot of effort, okay, which is energy. And then very often we feel powerless, because what are we conditioned to think about cancer, okay? So if instead we focus on introducing into my being a positive energy in any way, shape or form, good food, meditation, hanging out with friends, seeing a funny movie, walking in the moonlight, whatever it is. That's what I call counterbalancing. So I'm focusing on introducing positive energies into my being rather than constantly dwelling on what's got me out of balance.
You get reports that people did cure themselves from incurable cancer,
yes.
right? And other diseases too.
Yes.
And then they share that, oh God, they researched everywhere, they called everyone, they went to libraries everywhere, and they know more about cancer than the doctors now, because they did take a few years to figure it out. But I mean, and so then that's where you find those alternative ways to introduce positive energy, by finding alternative ways that are not necessarily broadcast, because they're against the regular oncology, chemotherapy, and all that kind of radiation therapy, and heart bypasses, and all those things that people do when they follow the conventional. That's pretty radical. And
but there's a big problem with that, Richard.
Yeah.
And that's a method that works for one person does not necessarily work for another person as well. So we...
Well, I don't think those radical methods work for anyone. They kill you worse than the brain disease, right?
They can guide us along. But I think very often it's useful to just have a look at what steps can I take that resonate with me, without necessarily saying, well, Joe Blow did such and such, so therefore that must work for me as well.
Right.
Yeah. There was something that I was going to mention that you talked about before very briefly, and you were talking about not having a clear path. Can you remember the context in which you said that in? Like, I don't know what to do about this because I don't really have a clear path. Something like that?
Yeah, it's kind of escaping me now. Did it mean personal to me, or did it mean just kind of an example?
In general terms. Because I think very often we get bogged down in wanting to walk the whole journey in one fell swoop. We say, oh, this is say recovering from cancer. This is going to be a very difficult journey. This is going to be such a difficult path. Because it seems unlikely to our present understanding that I will be able to manage this whole journey. And if instead we realize that I can't go from here to here in one fell swoop, so I don't have to worry about this whole path, all I actually need to do, especially if I'm in a difficult situation, is I can have a vague idea, okay, I want to get myself into a different, better spot. So what do I have power over? What can I actually do? And that is to take the first step. I come across lots of people who feel that they are swamped by a circumstance, and it seems so overpowering that they're just stuck. And I say, just take a step.
Yeah. No, I see the wisdom in that, totally. I guess what I meant with that clear path is because, everyone doesn't give all the wisdom in an equal balance, right? So somebody might be an expert at surgery, and they'll say, "This, you could have a surgical method for this," even like a dislocated knee or something. They want to scope your knee, and or a cancer or a heart or something. And then somebody else will say, "Oh, some of this can be helped by diet and lifestyle change." And those other people say, "No.
Yeah.
Surgery is the only thing that works here,
Yeah,
and so then you don't have an alternative to put your energy on until you do a little research and more or less test. Someone says, I can change my diet. Let me try to take some of that stuff and see how it works.
And that's why I think if we try and compare restoring ourselves to our well-being, to our optimum well-being, to unblocking a blocked sink, okay? First of all, Richard, I think that if a sink is blocked, which is sort of like if the flow of my energy is blocked, and if I dunk my hand into this sink and go squishy, 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 first of all, I don't have to know whether the sink is blocked by last night's spaghetti bolognese or this morning's cheese on toast. I just squish it around. But sometimes if the blockage is severe enough, I find that we need to use several methods. You know, squishing might only do a little bit. I might take my wire coat hanger and straighten it out and put a little bendy thing on the end and go and try and unblock it that way. And I might take a hammer and whack it against the side to loosen up a few things that are hanging in there. So each one of them in its particular field of expertise will help to unblock this sink. Whereas not necessarily one particular method worked by itself. And I think that is the difficulty with a lot of the treatments that we have in modern medicine, that they only depend on one particular method and very often don't take into consideration other methods as well.
Beautiful. Well stated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so far we're kind of, the conversation sounds like we're talking about healing an individual, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And, you know, some people, some groups, maybe even churches say the best way to solve a problem is get a bigger problem. In other words, I guess those groups are more or less thinking about helping the poor or something like that. And
yes.
then all your personal things kind of just fade away and you say, well, these guys live way worse than I do, you know, like if I could put some energy into them. And so then healing is equally available to systems that are bigger than the system of our body.
Sure.
And we can start with the system of our family or the system of our community or the system of our government or the system of our nation or the system of the world, really, or other governments or other populations. And I don't know, I mean, is that something that you ever get involved with, or you, what do you think about that? One way to solve a problem is get a bigger problem. And then that problem's nothing anymore, you know. Even if I'm going to die, okay, I'm going to die anyhow, but now I'm giving so much to this cerebral palsy or something, or I'm giving so much to autism, or I'm mentoring, you know, I'm a big brother to some children, or I'm, you know, and then
that basically, Richard, brings us back to what we were talking about before, and that is, a situation is simply a situation, but how I respond to it is the optimum thing. So if I look at a situation and I think it's a huge problem for me, then it is actually a huge problem for me. If I think of the starving children in India, that is a different perception, which will then change how I view this particular, what I thought of was a problem. So I've changed my attitude, I've changed how I choose to respond to that.
Well, in one way, it is an energy phenomenon, because you said energy, because a lot of times when we're just devolving into ourselves and our energies are kind of rolling in like this, and then there's nowhere for them to go or nowhere to connect with. If we reach out for others, you know, we don't have to personalize all the starving children in the world and get an anxiety about it. But, I mean, you know, people are trying to get plastic out of the sea, and you know, people adopt all kinds of, you know, I don't know if it's just, you know, sometimes we talk against do-gooders and just say, well, you know, their doing good is a reaction. And maybe even that's a reaction to how they feel bad for themselves, and naturally somehow that bad feeling doesn't sound like they're going to really be spreading a good feeling, since the whole thing was originated from a bad feeling. And then, but maybe that is just an excuse for disengagement, you know, and people say, well, I'm going to wait until I'm totally open, and then I'll put my energy somewhere else. So I don't even know. That's a...
Yeah. So basically what you're saying, Richard, is that something that has a starting point in a bad feeling or a bad response cannot then...
Or a fear.
Or a fear cannot then end up being good?
That's a question.
Oh, a question.
Not a statement, you know. But I mean, a lot of people have answered that question with that, and they come up with that response, you know. And in a way, I think that's an excuse just to stay disengaged and stay safe and stay somehow. I don't know. It's a fear of expression, right? Because I'm not good enough to express.
But I think again it comes down to we are individuals, and for some people, remember that person that we were talking about before who feels remorse. because a loved one has passed over and we didn't show that person enough love. So if out of that,
enough just means as much as we had, you know.
Yes, not enough to our sense when we think about it, because otherwise we wouldn't feel remorse. Okay, but the thing is, then for that person to say, okay, well, I can't change that, but I will give my unconditional love, say, to the orphans in this city. I think that is a good outcome that arose from something that made a bad energy or a bad vibration in this person originally.
Yeah, right. In other words, both of those are expression, you know, because one is, you say, no, I had remorse because I didn't express myself the way I truly felt, and I just played little surface games instead. And that's a pity, you know, and then to cure that, you're going to express somewhere else, and it's an expression problem.
Yes.
But we talked about bringing in an energy and getting the flow going, and so then expression has got to be a part of that formula, doesn't it?
Yes, because the thing is, it's always an outcome of my intent. And, you know, 3 different people can say and do exactly the same thing, but each one of those has a different energy pattern because they may have a totally different intent.
Yeah.
You know, so somebody might go and help the orphans in the city because they think, oh, you know, that will raise my standard in the community. So
well, they do, because, I mean, who else joins? We have the Rotary Club in the States.
Yeah.
Different clubs, the Lions and all that stuff, and they do good things, you know. And then, of course, I didn't join them because I didn't do local business, and I didn't need to meet any of those people to do my business. And the people that generally join are in real estate, bankers, and so on and so on. They're the ones that deal locally, and they want to get to know who lives there and who are the movers and shakers.
Yeah. So their purpose...
That's a secondary motivation, right?
So their purpose is mainly to enhance their financial success.
Well, you know, we could say mainly, but, you know, that's part of the formula, right? And then they say, okay, we're together in the power of a group, you know, we could do something more than a single person can do, so let's do some good things.
Yeah. So basically all the whole point that I was making is people can do exactly the same thing, but it'll have a different energy vibration in itself because it is attached to a different intent.
See, because, like, I'm not so sure, you said something pretty categorical there. It's always tied to their intent, you know. And I would say that sometimes I just find myself doing stuff without any intent, you know, and I don't know, it's a mystery, you know. God must have done it. I don't know how I'm doing this.
But you know what, Richard, a lot of our intent is not necessarily a conscious intent.
There you go.
Yeah, you know.
So then we don't own it. You know, we can't even say it's our intent because it's happening, but, you know, you could say, well, you own your unconscious. Well, your unconscious is the collective, right? You haven't made a decision on that.
Yes and no. You have a good point there.
You haven't voted it in or voted it out.
But the thing is, it is our choice to have a look at how I can perceive my actions or my feelings. And then if I think, well, I don't quite know where this is coming from on a conscious level, so let me see whether I can work on myself to put myself into a different space of being. It's what I call regrooving, basically. A lot of what we think of as our subconscious responses to things are like smoking. You know, person is in a stressful situation without even thinking, they reach for a fag and stick it into their mouth and start smoking. So a lot of our responses are subconscious responses, which continue simply because this is how we've always done that. But then if I get to a conscious stage where I say to myself, I don't really want to continue to feel or act like this, then I will need to do something. Then I will need to do some work with myself to put myself into a different energy vibration.
Yeah. Pretty complicated, especially when you say something like smoking. I know some people have probably said, I'm going to quit smoking for 20 years, you know, and they're still smoking, you know.
Yeah.
And so then it's not a decision. It's something else. It's a mystery of, it's a mix of like emotional fed upness or somehow you just say, oh, God, it's another respect for your own body. You know, finally it clicks that you respect that machine, and whether that comes out of a fear or whether that comes out of a wake-up call where you've got a sickness, or whether it comes out because someone else died from cancer really close to you, or smoking diseases, or who knows.
You know what, Richard? Most people who solemnly swear that there is no way that I can give up smoking. I'm just so addicted. I just can't give it up. I've tried umpteen times now. I just can't give up smoking. But if somebody says to them, look, if you don't quit smoking, you're going to be dead in 2 weeks. A lot of those people can actually quit smoking from one day to the next.
Oh, yeah. You know, a lot of people that are really on the deathbed are smoking huge cigars too, because they say, "Well, I'll go in style, right?"
Yes, exactly. That's why I qualified that statement and said a lot. Yes.
Right. My wife quit smoking. How did she do it? Hypnotism.
Ah, okay.
Somebody just talked to her for about 8 hours
Yes.
in a row, just kept talking, and then I wasn't there, so I don't know. But then she never smoked again.
Yeah. I smoked for 30 years. Don't ask me now how I managed to do that, but I smoked for about 30 years and tried umpteen times to do the classical smokers, I'm not going to smoke anymore bit. This is a filthy, disgusting habit. I'm not going to do this anymore. Here's my cigarettes. Tear them all apart. Throw them into the garbage bin. And 10 minutes later you go grommety, 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 trying to find a piece that's big enough for you to have a drag on. So then I decided that I wasn't going to say to my addicted smoker's mind that I'm going to give up smoking for the rest of my life. I only ever negotiated that I'm not going to have a puff of a cigarette at this moment, because I knew that at this moment I could actually manage. So I simply walked this long path that we sort of mentioned a little bit before, moment by moment, which is my power center. I can only ever make a decision that I'm not going to have a drag right now. I can maybe smoke a cigarette in 2 minutes' time, but I'll make that decision in 2 minutes' time when I get to there, but not right at this moment. And that's how I did it.
Wow, that's totally amazing. You know, because I'd say like that ties to so many things, because we want to settle things once and for all, see?
Yes.
And so then I'm not going to smoke ever again as a concept.
Yes.
Right? And a concept is only good as, I don't know, it's not very good, really. Yeah. It's going to certainly get out of date.
Yes. And it's a concept that I really have no control over, Richard. I have no control over saying I'm not ever going to smoke ever again, because I have no control in this present moment of what I may or may not do in 10 years' time. Right. But I do have control over what I choose for myself in this very moment. This is my power moment. And I think that's why this idea of living in the moment has become such a huge thing in alternate thinking, that, you know, whatever I want to achieve, I can have a sort of goal that I would like to go towards. But you see, very often the scenery changes on my path, and something better crops up. So then I need to be flexible. Right. Then I need to be able to adjust. You know, a lot of people who say, this is what I want to achieve, and they work towards that single-mindedly, and they forget to smell the roses on the path, and they forget to see that there's another beautiful destination over here. So I think if we live focusing in this moment and making the best of just this moment, I think it makes things a little bit easier in a lot of situations.
God, that's so clear. You know, it's so clear what's happening, because we're all making decisions which are conceptual thoughts about how I'm going to be, right?
Yes.
But that doesn't have anything to do with the actual being and how we are right now, you know?
Yes.
And so there's no connection. I'm going to quit smoking. That's a dandy idea, and I'm smoking while I'm saying it, right?
Yes.
So then you said, okay, it's a nice idea. I'm going to park that for now.
Yep.
I'm just going to see what happens between my cigarette pack and my lips, if anything goes up there.
In this moment.
Yeah, and always in this moment.
Very moment. Yes.
And the fact that you made that idea, there's not necessarily a connection to what's happening like this, you know?
It has a bit of a connection, because the original idea or intent is actually my impetus of trying the method of just working on the moment, if that makes sense. You know,
yeah, but I mean, you could just work on the moment without any intent, because that's where you're alive. Maybe you could have the intent of just expressing your life and not expressing your mind so much, right?
We can refine
that could work for everything.
Yes, we can refine that. And I think a lot of people, including myself, are working towards the idea of living our lives more and more just within this moment.
To me, intent has to do with interest, see? And then what I find myself doing in this moment usually has something to do with my interest. And that doesn't mean positive necessarily, because like a lot of times I'm interested in not getting caught by the tax man, or I'm interested in me having enough money to get my rent paid, and all these kind of things that are pressure too. You know, those are my fears are definitely my interest, maybe even more than my pleasures, right? And so then somehow intent is a way to manage your interest, and interest is a way that your attention focuses.
Yes.
And then the way your attention focuses actually makes up your moment-to-moment existence.
Yes. So what you're doing moment to moment is you are choosing a course of action that you perceive in that moment to be in your best interest, and therefore, seeing that we're sort of basically talking about energies, to resonate most with where you want to be in this moment. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, the nicest or the best, but simply you perceive that this is the best choice that you can do for yourself at this moment. Now, tomorrow you can look back, because hindsight is a bad thing, and you can say to yourself, oh, Richard, why did I choose to do that when I could have done such and such and such? But we can only ever choose to do the best thing in this present moment. And then once I've made that choice, then it's totally pointless for me to beat myself up.
Beat yourself up. But I mean, hindsight is a good thing, because you could say, oh, I don't need to do that anymore. You know, now I can improve it.
Yes, we can learn from that experience, but we don't have to beat ourselves up. You know, why did I do that?
Yeah. So then I don't know, I just feel like talking with you, I made one of the biggest discoveries. I mean, for today, this is a huge discovery that, I mean, all this intent and stuff that works as good ideas, really, and where's the link to right now? So you said, okay, we were saying smoking, I'm not going to smoke.
Yes.
And okay, we could say healing, I want to be healed, and that's a good idea. But you could be watching, like, what's happening with how I'm, you know, how my anxiety level is right now.
Yes.
And how if I'm nervous, I'm probably blanking out. And if I'm blanking out, I'm probably sticking something in my mouth. And then, you know, we could just say, okay, I had a guru once. It was pretty cool, because he said, meditate twice a day, but in order to meditate, you need a 4-hour empty stomach. You know, 4 hours since you ate. Well, in order to do that, that cuts out all snacking, because there's no way to do it with snacking, you know. And I mean, he wasn't saying cut out all snacking is a good idea. He was saying, in order to meditate, you need a 4-hour empty stomach. And I found out that without grazing, I felt so much better. You know, and a lot of people say, no, I need to eat every 2 hours, you know, and they're always grazing. That's an excuse to graze, right? But they need to eat other kind of foods that are not, that don't throw you up and drop you down. Yeah. Right?
And that's why what suits one person doesn't necessarily suit the next person. We need to experiment sometimes to find out.
All the time. What suits one person is to experiment, and that suits everybody.
Yes, that's true.
You could say it that way.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So then we could take that to healing. You know, healing, okay, you got an intention to heal and all that. But then you got to it's a moment-to-moment thing. There's not just one solution where I take an oath and then everything is fixed, you know. Absolutely not.
Yes. So if for example, I've been given a diagnosis of something pretty heavy physically, and we also need to remember that healing very often, you know, happens on a mental and emotional vibration as well. We just tend to think more of healing more in a physical sense.
With chemicals and nutrients.
Yeah. But the thing is, see, a lot of our physical healing doesn't necessarily depend on physical methods. See, even modern modern medicine says to people who've been diagnosed with cancer, go find yourself a meditation group, because it means that, we can rebalance my physical vibration by a mental input, by keeping myself more calm.
Mm-hmm. So then, the moment to moment. Okay, let's just have three things, because you said there's a mental, and emotional.
Yes.
And I'll add another one. We'll just say energy, right?
Or
how
spiritual,
the energy flows.
Yes.
Yeah, how the energy flows. We don't even have to say spiritual, because everyone knows what that means too well.
Exactly.
Okay, so the thought. So then, and then we said just having a kind of like a concept about you got to watch it moment to moment. So those are the three things we have to watch. So then we watch our thoughts, and we say, well, are we being mean to someone in our thoughts? And a lot of religions and stuff have said that for years.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'm not acting on it, so it's okay. No, it's not okay.
No, it's not.
Because it's squeezing something in your system, and it's blocking your system, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Emotional, okay, I'm anxiety bound. Mm-hmm. So then you can watch that moment by moment and just say, no, I choose to be open. I choose to relax on that. Let me be worried later.
Yes.
And the third one is like energy. So then energy to me is expression. So that I should be expressing something. So, okay, I'm in the supermarket, I'll just say to the cashier, that your best product is your smile.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
And then
you've made another person happy, and that other person sends you a whole lot of nice, joyous vibes, which brighten up your being.
So then that whole energy function, the third one, is going, but it takes an expression. Because if you block and say, I'm not going to express, I'm too sick to express, and probably if I express, I'll just put everyone down. So I'll just close the gates. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what's sick. That's why you're sick, because your gates are closed, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. And so then, I love expression, so I'm finding another excuse to tell people to express, right?
Yes, yes, and I might quote you on that if that's okay by you. I like that concept as well, and maybe it's a better word to use than counterbalancing. Because basically that's what we're talking about. I'm thinking of giving expression to putting positive energies into my being.
Yeah. So energy doesn't flow unless you express, right?
Yeah.
You can't just receive it.
Yes.
You have to express it.
Yes.
And the religions even say that. They say give and you'll receive, right? But I mean, they're just saying open the flow is basically all they're saying. And that giving is the part that you have more control over. Mm-hmm. And then making other people give to you is a little more. You have to be too sly for that, and then that's already a closure of your energy, trying to be sly and tricky.
And see, again, that's the good thing with the concept of expression as well, because I can only ever express in my moment right now. I can't express in the past. I can't express in the future. I can only ever give expression to something in this very moment right now. And in fact, I think most people forget about the importance of keeping ourselves in the now. Because if talking about energies, if we think of our being as having the slow energy vibration of my physical being, and the faster vibration of my thoughts and my emotions and spirit or energy, they're all different frequencies of vibration. Now, the only one that we can actually see is my body, because it falls within the visible spectrum. So I think of my body as like a solid. My body, out of all of my vibrations, is like a solid, so it actually has to be in this place and in this time. My thoughts, which always piggyback my emotions, remember I was saying before, my thoughts trigger the release of hormones that I experience as emotions. Now, my thoughts are a much lighter vibration, so they can zip around all over the place. They can go 20 years into the past, they can go 20 years into the future, they can go to Timbuktu, they can go to wherever it is, but the end result of the energy, emotion, and body sequence, my thoughts in the past and my thoughts in the future don't have a body attached to it. The body is in the here and now. So if I think of sad things in the past, the physical response is still in my present moment. But a lot of us lead lots of times where the different parts of my being are not connected. My body is here in the now, supposed to, this is my power moment. My energy, my spirit, whatever we want to call it, is always connected to that. But if I'm a car that wants to or needs to run on 4 cylinders, part of my cylinders are zipping around all over the place. They're not connected. So I struggle to do my journeying. And especially if things get tough, if I'm trying to be a little 2-cylinder car trying to go up the hill, then I'm really struggling. So I think that's why it's important to try and keep all of my energies anchored in this moment, so I have my most available energy for being effective in this particular moment.
So concepts, no matter what they are and how good they are, they disempower us. I think you can say that, because they rob our energy from the, and in a way they're designed actually to give us some relief, because we feel like, okay, this moment's too hyper for me. I gotta have it relax. So I'm gonna think a good thought. I'm gonna make a good concept. I'm gonna say an affirmation. I'm gonna, so then we're not willing to give all our cylinders to this moment. We're saying, let's take a few cylinders out of circulation, and maybe this moment will be a little bit more bearable. But really, we're just prolonging the agony, aren't we?
I don't think that we can.
It's not conscious. I'm not saying we did that on purpose, but we are doing that on purpose in the subconscious. That's the design of it, and that's it. That's totally the effect of it.
Mm-hmm. See, not doing anything is actually not doing anything. We've made the choice that instead of running around like a mad nut all day, that I'm going to be replenishing my being by sitting in the sunshine and reading a good book. And I'm not quite sure whether I interpreted what you were just saying exactly, so correct me if I'm sort of off the mark a little bit. But I think the important thing is that whatever I do in the moment, that I keep my energies together, especially if I'm having a hard time.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be cool to do it all the time, because then you would be an empowered being, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. We should be aiming for all of the time, but at least to aim to that when I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. And at least catch ourselves going in the opposite direction and say, oh, wait a minute, I remember what Monika said, right?
Yeah, because apparently our subconscious mind can't tell the difference between past, present, and future. It only reads the energy vibration of my thought. So then all of my responses to that, because remember, my thoughts create how I respond to a situation. So the rest of my being still responds as if this is happening to me at the moment.
Thoughts always take us out of the moment. Every thought is out of the moment, in part.
Yes. Because like I said before, a lot of our thoughts are not necessarily conscious thoughts that are anchored in the moment.
I'm just saying none of them. How can you have a thought without having a memory of some other kind of construction? Anything language-based is out of the moment, and it's got at least one cylinder out. Out.
Mm-hmm. But the thing also, though, is my thoughts in the moment then are the basis for my future thoughts as well. So they do have their benefit in that way as well.
Yeah, but maybe we don't even need any thoughts in the moment. No, I totally agree, though, that our feelings in the moment, like if we're just totally anxious, but our goal is to be totally free and totally happy, how's it going to happen? Where's the transition going to happen? Tomorrow's going to be the same, totally anxious. So even a little bit of happiness now is going to give us more potential to be happy tomorrow, right?
Yes, because it also gives us the trust that it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually experiencing it. It's not only possible, it is.
That's exactly what I'm saying. A lot of people think, oh, I could never do this, but as long as we experience it for just a moment, then we know, well, I can
you're doing it, because they'll say, like, in a condition like me, nobody could be happy. I could never do it, and they say, wait a minute, you were just happy a second ago.
Yes, it's what I often say to people, Richard, who've come to see me for a Reiki and crystal therapy. And we finish, and they lie there, and they say, "Oh, I haven't been as relaxed like this for a long, long time." And I say, "Does it feel good?" "Oh yeah, it's lovely to be this relaxed." And I say to them, "Look, your circumstances haven't changed. Your circumstances are exactly the same circumstances that were in place when you walked in. So despite your circumstances, you can feel totally relaxed. So it's possible to maintain your inner peace irrespective of what happens around you."
Okay. So then they'll make an excuse and say, no, you were here. You did it to me.
Yes, but you see that's why I give 2-hour appointments, Richard, so that I can teach them that they don't have to give away their power to want to come to somebody else. We talk about some methods where they can empower themselves and have some ways of maintaining their well-being.
I think we said some really, really powerful stuff more on a generic way, because we just realized, and we just unfolded in front of everyone, that healing's not a concept. Healing is a here, now, being event.
Yes.
And that even if you have the greatest concept about healing, if it's not, and you're not even putting that concept into practice, somehow it's a different context totally, that you're just, it's another being thing that we haven't really discovered, the how-tos and all that. But
But basically, Richard, I think it's not a matter of Monika trying to heal Monika, or Monika trying to help Richard heal himself. I think basically the universe is a self-healing organism, and I benefit from that. So I think that's what my inner healing energy is. It's part of my life force energy. But I think people need to realize that it's this wisdom that actually does the realigning on all levels. But I need to learn to let it flow, because a lot of people put obstacles in its path. Like, I can't do this, and I'm too this, and I'm too that, and it's a little bit, it's what I call picking the scab.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Of course, dis-ease, uneasiness, contraction, energy out of balance, negative energies, and they're all really important things, because if they didn't crop up, we wouldn't know, we wouldn't have a feedback loop to know that we're on a destructive path.
Yes.
And so then we wouldn't be able to measure our life. That's kind of like our tool for measurement, right? As how our energy flows.
Yeah.
And then so we could say that sickness and ill health and anxiety are really an important part of life, because we can realize that we don't need it, and we don't need to do the things that create it, right?
Yes. And I think it also puts into context being able to appreciate all of the things that are going well. That's why I think the concept of gratitude is very important as well.
Yeah, where we focus our energy.
Yeah,
right? We're not even looking at that. But we should take stock every moment or every day, or in our journal or something. Where was our focus today?
Yeah, our poor old subconscious mind very often is fed a constant stream of negatives. This didn't go right. Nobody loves me. I can't do this. Where will this happen? But we don't, in an equal manner, acknowledge all the things that are right. We don't say, "Oh, well, I've just been able to hop out of bed this morning. How lucky am I? I'm sitting here and I don't suffer excruciating pain. Wow, how wonderful is that? I've just met an interesting new person. Wow, how exciting for my present moment." We tend to only acknowledge and therefore register things that aren't going right. Not always, but I think it's a general pattern that we have.
That part of us that is designed to protect us is in a way an alarmist, and it just tells, hey, trouble here, hey, trouble there. But that's designed to do that. And then there must be another part of us that is the enjoyer, and we ought to put that guy to work, and get to know him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The enjoyer.
Mm-hmm. And I think that also ties in with what you were saying before. If you think you have a problem, go find a bigger problem. Because oftentimes people stop themselves from enjoying because they're focusing on things that are, in the whole scheme of things, piddlingly unimportant.
Yeah, but we discovered that mechanism, because go find a bigger problem means go into expression, and expression is that third part of the formula, because there's the thoughts, the feelings, and the energy. The energy has to do with expression. So then we've already discovered that, the root of it, and you know that it's a great device to build your energy.
I think anything can be a device to build our energy if we take the trouble to occasionally stop our rushing about and taking stock to, you know, what am I doing this moment? Where am I this moment?
Yeah. In a way, we're so proud of our concepts, you know, and a lot of our concepts are appointments, and like how we're so busy, you know, and we're proud of our busyness, because that means we're important people, right? And so then we're proud of our unavailability when we can't talk to someone because, hey, you got to make an appointment with me, or call me next week, or, you know, and then in a way that we're proud of that means like it's only going to get bigger, right? You say, hey, this is cool. I'm really busy, you know. And so then when are we ever going to slow down and have a pause and really take stock of our own life? No, we'll do that tomorrow because we don't have time for that today. And we get blocked into a kind of a corner.
Yes, and then it becomes a habit, and we're creatures of habit.
Well, I mean, I don't even know if it's a habit, because if we're proud of it, that creates the habit. But the moment we're disgusted of it, then that habit could break in an instant, right?
What I'm trying to say, Richard, here is that we get so used to that this is my lifestyle, that being busy gives me a content for where I'm at, and then it's almost often self-perpetuating. That it takes a very strong conscious thought to say, well, no, I'm not going to rush around today, and I'm not going to take appointments today. I'm going to go for a walk along the beach instead.
Yeah. Well, we can give a lot of people a pass, and I can be the first one to say, I just don't want to sit around in the supermarket and see what's going on. You know, I like to come here and do a video.
Yeah.
But I mean, okay, we'll give them a pass, but today a few people were called, and they said, well, I have to prepare for the Bodhi Fest. And so then you have to prepare for the Bodhi Fest too, but you came, see, because you allowed a space, right?
Exactly, because I made a choice. Because my first response was, I had visions when David mentioned it, I had visions of people coming with a camera, and I think they're going to have trouble walking across this floor because I've got boxes everywhere, and I need to take this out of the way, and I just don't have time at the moment to want to do this. And then 2 minutes later, I thought, hang on here, it doesn't matter, I'll just shove things out of the way. So I rang David again. He says, no, it's all cool. I can come and sit here. So that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about, I think, wonderful things and generic things. But I wanted to ask you, did we talk enough about Reiki and crystal therapy? Because maybe that's what you want to say a few words on that, right? That's going to like...
I didn't have any preconceptions at all, Richard. I just came and I just sat myself on this chair, and I just trusted that wherever the conversation flowed, that's fine. I think lots of people talk about Reiki and crystal therapy. It's not necessary that it needs to be discussed.
All right. You heard that, guys and gals. But you can see what kind of a woman this Monika is, and you can see that she's got some great insights, and she's also got great procedures to talk with you for 2 hours so that you're not, you know, kind of teach us a few things for yourself so that you're not dependent and not, you know, crediting all the other people around you, but discrediting your own abilities. And so
I just think that the process doesn't just start and finish with the beginning and the end of a Reiki or crystal therapy. I think what arises from that for a lot of people is just as, if not more, important.
So thank you very much, Monika.
Thank you, Richard.
We learned so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Just like Monika says, thank you all. And have fun, you know, have fun in Australia if you come here, and have fun at home if you go there. And, you know, my old drum is to say, express yourself, start your energy flowing.
And have fun being in the moment.
Yeah. you.